Welcome to Quantumly Kinky with Dr. Veda, where we talk about sex, Eastern medicine, and character development for the multidimensional you. Episode 46, 1 year of Quantumly Kinky, a flirtatious thank you note to all you turned on listeners. Welcome back to Quantumly Kinky, where modern sexuality meets ancient medicine, and every episode helps you to rewire your body for more pleasure, power, presence, and turn on. I am your host, Dr. Veda, and today's episode is a celebration, a clinking of glasses, a lean-in moment that says, wait, we did that. Somehow, someway, without a big launch, a countdown, or fireworks, Quantumly Kinky turned one. 1 full year of letting things unfold, of not rushing before it was ready, and of trusting that transformation doesn't need to be shouted to work. This show didn't start as some content plan. It started with a feeling of curiosity, a feeling worth following. And the episodes, they were all allowed to take their time, but also be intentional enough to be bite-sized in this very oversaturated content world. Curiosity was our leader. And the right people, they found their way here. You did. What we made space for was simple. Honesty, play, expansion, learning, zero judgment, and just enough room to breathe and really feel. So today's episode isn't about teaching anything new, but it's about pausing long enough to celebrate. We're also going to revisit 3 episodes that have really stayed with us, the ones that keep flirting back. They're really the ones that feel like the backbone of this show so far. And then I'll share a little about what's next, how this community is going to continue to evolve, and where we're headed together. But first, I'm raising a glass to us, to what we've been making here together. Cheers to year 1. Quantumly Kinky, it exists because too many smart, soulful, sexy humans have been taught to override themselves to succeed. To push, to grind, to hustle, to optimize their way out of their own bodies. Meanwhile, the body was like, hello, I'm right here. But instead of listening, we handed our attention to these feeds, to scrolling, to algorithms, to endless input with zero digestion. So we're everywhere, except here, present, right now. We're overstimulated but undernourished. We're full of information but starved for sensation. We're productive but weirdly turned off. Overstimulated, undertouched, underlistened to, all of it. But this podcast, it's a gentle but unapologetic interruption. An interruption to disassociation dressed up as ambition. An interruption to healing spaces that feel like doctor's offices with bad lighting and zero turn on. Quantumly Kinky is an interruption to spirituality that floats above the body instead of being rooted inside of it. And it's an interruption to sexuality that has become performative, mechanical, or just blah. So quantumly kinky, it's not here to fix us, but it's here to slow us down just enough to feel turned on again, to flirt us back into our body and to help us live the most turned on life instead of being constantly distracted. Over the last year, each episode was meant to nourish you, not overwhelm, to give your nervous system something that it can actually use, and to introduce ideas and concepts that make you think and feel, but without flooding you. And yes, we've even woven into all of this Eastern medicine wisdom. Because as your host and a doctor of Eastern medicine that specializes in sexual vitality and longevity, I'm here to remind us that the body has always known how to stay alive, connected, and lit the fuck up. But only when we stop rushing it. Pleasure is not extra and sensation is not indulgent. They're necessary. They're intelligent. And our bodies, they've been trying to get our attention this whole time, sometimes in very creative ways. And for the last year, this show, Quantumly Kinky, is where every week we can come together to just breathe, quiet all of the stimulation, and just listen together. This is what we do here. We slow down just enough to notice what actually is present. And over the last year, a few episodes in particular refused to be just one-night stands. They kept coming back like our favorite lovers. And not because they were loud, but because they stuck. These episodes are the ones that feel like the spine and the heartbeat of Quantumly Kinky. And the first one was one of the most recent episodes, episode 45, all about how presence is really the only timeline that we can control. This episode really became the nervous system home base. Because here's the truth. Our power does not live in our 5-year plans. It doesn't live in regret. And it doesn't live in this fantasy version of us who has it all figured out. Episode 45 taught us that our power lives here, now, in sensation. And that presence isn't all about discipline, it's intimacy. Because when our nervous system is fried, we start leaking energy everywhere. Into the past, into the future, the what ifs, the should haves. But presence plugs the leak. And yes, presence is sexy. Because presence requires you to stay, to feel, to not check out when things get tender. And choosing presence is choosing the moment as worthy of attention. And that's not boring. That's bold. And then we have our second episode, episode 3. Episode 3 was all about the fundamental 2 questions. You know them. How may I serve? And what is your will for me? This episode is the foundation of devotion, but making it hot, sexy, kinky, playful. And I think this episode surprised some people because it wasn't about submission in the way that we've been conditioned to believe. It was about submission as attunement, about letting life lean in a little closer. And our two questions, they help us to soften our clenched jaws and our anxious minds. They loosen this grip, and they invite more curiosity instead of control into our lives. There is something so deeply erotic about chosen devotion. Not disappearing, not self-erasing, but listening. Because alignment doesn't come from force, it comes from responsiveness. And when we stop demanding that life prove itself to us, it starts responding to our sincerity in very interesting ways. So our two questions really serves as one of the biggest foundations so far that we've built together. Each day asking, how may I serve? And what is your will for me? To those expanded, multidimensional aspects of you helps us to say yes to that cosmic, kinky BDSM play. And then number 3, this is the Sex is Tech series. And this was a 6-part series, episodes 13 through 18. And it's all about how pleasure really knows what it's doing. This episode clarified everything. Pleasure is not a reward, it's information. Arousal is feedback. And your erotic life is basically a very honest data stream. Your erotic life is showing you where you rush, where you numb, where you override, where you soften, and where you finally let yourself receive. Sex, when approached with presence, becomes a tuning session. You're not just having sex, you're actually teaching and retraining your nervous system what it feels to feel turned on and safe. And reclaiming that's not extra. That's foundational. And of course, we can't forget about our 3 Hypnotica Erotica meditations over the last year. These are like transmissions, a frequency that you enter. It's where sensation becomes language, where breath becomes a key, where arousal isn't about climax, but about coherence. And over this first year of Quantumly Kinky, I've begun releasing these transmissions very intentionally. Each one short, precise, and designed not to overwhelm, but to re-attune. These aren't long cognitive experiences meant to keep you busy or distracted, but they're potent nervous system calibrations, moments of erotic aftercare for the modern human. A place where erotic intelligence meets safety, where pleasure becomes regulation, and where presence becomes the portal. Each Hypnotica Erotica is an invitation to soften all the noise, to drop beneath the performance of yourself, and to remember that your body already knows how to recalibrate itself when given the right tone, rhythm, and permission. And this is erotic medicine, not stimulation for distraction, but sensation for integration. And as we cross this 1 year threshold together, this is one of the places that I'll keep expanding, slowly, intentionally, and with deep respect for your nervous system and your attention. So this is just the beginning, babe. Now, let me talk to you, not as listeners, but as the reason that this energetic field exists. If you've ever listened to one of these episodes while driving and suddenly felt your heart open, if you've ever paused an episode because your body needed a second, if you've ever felt less weird about wanting something else or more aliveness, and if you've ever realized that your sensitivity might actually be your superpower, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you've listened to one of these episodes while cooking, crying, stretching, commuting, fucking, bathing, or lying on the floor doing absolutely nothing, thank you. This space is for the endlessly curious people, the sensual thinkers, the people who wanted healing that didn't feel like a punishment, unless it was sexy, consensual, and in the bedroom. The ones who knew that play is not frivolous, it's medicine. And the ones who are willing to be a little experimental, a little mischievous, to take their growth seriously, but without taking themselves so seriously. Over this last year, you've trusted me with your nervous system. And that's not casual, that's intimate. And what we've been doing here isn't just listening to a podcast. It's learning how to move through life a little more turned on, a little more present, a little more quantumly kinky together. And I am genuinely grateful for every single one of you. So what's next? Well, going forward, my intention is to keep sharing more Eastern medicine wisdom, not as theory, but as something that you can actually live with and practice daily. This is the year where I step fully into Dr. Veda in my practice, where the Veda method continues to birth itself. Sexual vitality, longevity, nervous system intelligence, all made accessible to you no matter where you are in the world. Because while my in-person sessions in San Diego are powerful, this space, Quantumly Kinky, lets the medicine travel farther. I'll also be very selective about some interviews I'll be doing this year. And not because there aren't interesting people everywhere, but because your attention matters. So if someone comes into this portal, it's because they serve our shared vision. Living, turned on, embodied, awake, and without judgment. Not because we needed another 2-hour conversation that could have been 30 minutes and a cup of tea. So I'm committed to continue honoring your time, your nervous system, and the trust that you bring here every week. And finally, this is about building something bigger together. A living portal where this community can grow, expand, and actually talk to each other about what's moving, stirring, and landing from each episode. So not just listening alone, but relating, integrating. That's where we're headed. So before we go, thank you all again, all of you beautiful souls out there in this time ship Earth experience with me. Thank you for your time, for your attention, and for choosing presence in a world that rewards distraction. If this show has ever made you pause, feel, or see something differently, pass it along to your people that will also resonate. And make sure you're subscribed so that we can keep meeting here every week. And if something from any of the previous episodes in the last year lingered, landed, or just stirred you up a little bit, you are always welcome to message me through my YouTube channel or my social handles at Dr. Veda. Because this space only works because of the care that you bring to it. And I don't take that lightly. So before we sign off, let's celebrate for a second, because celebration matters to the nervous system. It tells the body we're safe enough to enjoy this. It lets effort soften into pleasure. And it marks the moment instead of rushing past it. So here is a virtual toast to 1 year of choosing slowness over scramble, presence over performance, and a life that stays a little more turned on. Clink your glass, take a breath, and let it land. Until next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Quantumly Kinky with Dr. Veda. Until next time, stay turned on.